Hi, welcome to Escape into a Cause, the podcast inspiring Central Texans to turn good intentions into impact. I'm Stephanie Dyer, a philanthropic rookie, learning how to give back with a little help from my expert friends. Together, we'll share stories of local nonprofits, explore ways to connect, and encourage everyone to step up, unplug, and make a difference. Let's dive in and escape into a cause. Hey, Courtney.
Hey, Steph.
We are going to escape into Art from the Streets, which empowers unhoused artists to create, connect, and showcase their talents.
Love that.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Really excited. They're actually in the Canopy by Sage Studio, which we've already interviewed.
Yes.
So I'm really excited to have them here. Okay, but first we're going to talk about a topic that matters, and it is voluntourism. What do you think voluntourism is?
It's a little self-explanatory. It gives away the hint in the words that you're using. So this is probably volunteering while you are abroad or away from your primary residence. But I'll be eager to learn, is that the intent of the trip? Is that why people are going on these trips? So tell me more.
A tourism market sector that started in the 1990s that attracts people who want to explore and help while they're abroad.
Okay.
So there is typically a mission, and by the end of the trip, you wanted to have done whatever that goal was that you were set out to do. Do you think this is a good thing? Do you think this is a bad thing?
It's not a totally new concept, right? If you think about faith-based organizations. So churches have had mission trips forever. There are certain religions, like if you think about Mormonism, where you must have some type of mission component to your education when you reach a certain age. The Jewish faith is also very popular in these types of trips, very much so going back to the motherland and kind of the roots to the heritage of that religion. But it's been going on for quite some time. So I'd be interested to hear more about when it's more secular with its intent.
All of the articles I read, nothing was really addressing the more missionary side of things. It was more of, hey, you probably went and Googled, I want to go help someone in a developing country and I want to go explore that area.
Yeah.
And what are the organizations that are linking you to go do some good while abroad? And when I hear it, it sounds really good. The intentions are good. This has become a complex, multifaceted issue. And the reason for that is the experts are saying it's actually doing more harm than good, unfortunately.
Oh, no. I could see that because if you're just doing on a whim, what research have you done? We were talking about it earlier, like the community. Are they receptive to this work? Are you just coming in and floating? Are you doing it for the tourist picture? There can be a little bit of taking advantage of the situation that I can imagine.
And you know what? I listened to an episode on a podcast about this. The host was talking about how she remembers people in high school and seeing these photos on social media of them in developing countries. Yeah. And she was like, I thought it was exploiting the situation. I guess I never thought about that. I only had one person in high school that I could think of, and she spent like a year there. And I was like, no, she's giving her life there for a year.
Yeah, that's a
and I don't know what she was doing there, but I was impressed by it. I admired it.
If you're there for a year, I would also say that's not tourism.
That's a
long-term assignment.
Yes, absolutely. So anyway, she would post pictures of the community and everything. And I never thought it was exploiting anything. Maybe I'm just always optimistic. But when I see these things, it takes me a bit to really see the negative side of it. But anyway, the issue is that communities slowly become reliant on volunteers and they move away from being independent.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So the two biggest examples of this are where the mission is to go erect a building. And the issue
erect a church, erect a community center.
Exactly. It's usually a school or a library or maybe a church. And they say that a lot of times these skilled workers are having to go afterwards and repair. Because if you think about it, they said, isn't this a little bit arrogant that you think you can go build, you can go work in construction? Yeah. Have we ever thought we could go build a building here in Austin?
Right, I know.
We're not permitted. We're not experts.
Yeah.
But we think we can go to another country and do it.
Wouldn't that be great? In Austin, the number of permits that we have to get in Austin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we'll just go build a building.
Exactly. So there's a little bit of arrogance here that we think that we're skilled enough to go to another country and do this work when it actually takes skilled labor to put up a whole school building. The second that you see often that's common thread is orphanages. This is what's interesting. And they talk about the inherent white savior complex.
Yeah,
have you heard
absolutely.
This? White people are wanting to go help non-white people in a self-serving manner.
That's right.
Make themselves feel good.
Yeah. That's the biggest criticism of the movie, The Blind Side.
Yes. So the orphans, though, is interesting. 80 million children are in orphanages in the world.
That's insane.
90% are not orphans.
Tell me more.
Yes.
Are they taken from their families? Is that what you're going to tell me?
Child trade. Parents either sell or lease their children to these orphanages for when volunteers come to the orphanages. Yes. These volunteers pay and they come and they think they're doing good. They're holding the babies, they're playing with the children, and they think they're doing good. Many were convinced by the orphanage institution that if you give us your child, they have a brighter future. We will give them great meals and a great education. It's deceit and it's really sad. So they want these orphanages to fill up, to feel like there is a need. Even some stories about children learning how to dirty their face more before approaching the tourist.
Wow.
There was one story talking about erecting a building where this one volunteer, she wrote about her experience and said, I was there for a while. Then some people left, and I noticed in the background all the locals were taking down the building so that the next round of volunteers could go erect a new building.
So that the volunteers felt good.
It is no longer about those locals. It's a money game.
It's terrible.
This is wild.
But there has to be good stuff out there. And we've talked about this too. Deceit, greed. Yes. Greed is rampant around the world. And how do you do your research and identify those organizations that really are in need and where good is really being done? And it does require you to do your research. And so I hate these stories because, to your point, it discredits philanthropic work in its totality, and it discourages those who have the time and the treasure and the skills to give from giving, because you could be taken advantage of.
Well, the fact that the orphanage literally said 90% in the world are not true orphans.
You're saying worldwide.
That's correct. So it's the dark side of voluntourism. Sure. So Ryan Bingham is an expert, not the musician. He thinks that we need a paradigm shift towards close collaboration with local systems and strengthening existing in-country networks.
That makes sense.
So first of all, they say, go give in your community. That's a big one. Talking about effective altruism, which is altruism that's data-driven, not emotionally driven. All the money you're spending on travel abroad to go erect a building that's shoddy work and needs to be repaired later, go send some of that money to mosquito nets, to AIDS research. Those are the things that are going to really make the impact in these developing countries. And the ones where you want to really feel good, maybe emotionally, give back close by.
Where you see those places every day, you drive by them.
We're interviewing every single episode. Yes. They need funding. I don't even know if you knew this as statistic, but 1.7 million nonprofits in the United States, 88% of them have budgets of $500,000 or less.
Oh, yeah.
Surprise for me, but it just shows you that they could use more funds. Help your community more. Do your research when you're going abroad. I'm sure there's great trips, volunteering and going abroad. You have good intentions. Just do your research and give back locally.
That's right. Focus there first.
All right. Thanks, Court.
Thanks.
We'll be right back. Escape into a Cause is sponsored by Nightlight Insurance Agency. You know how a nightlight gives you comfort and peace of mind in the dark? That's exactly what Nightlight aims to do. Guide you through life's uncertainties with personalized insurance for your home, auto, business, and more. Nightlight Insurance strives to provide its clients the best coverage at the best price without sacrificing on customer service. Here's what one client had to say. Nightlight was able to lower our car insurance significantly, answered all our questions, and returned our calls promptly. Very professional, would highly recommend. So it's no surprise Nightlight has a 5-star rating on Google. Nightlight also makes this podcast possible by covering production costs so all other sponsorship dollars and gifts can go directly to nonprofits and volunteers. And as part of their mission to give back, Nightlight proudly donates $1,000 to every nonprofit we interview. If you are a sponsor interested in giving back to our podcast, please find us on social media and let us know. Nightlight is an agency focused on personalized service and giving back. See how much you could save and how good it feels to have peace of mind by visiting nightlightinsurance.com. Today, we are escaping into Art from the Streets, and we have here with us Marla Johnson, the development director. Hi, Marla.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hi, I'm really excited to dive into Art from the Streets. But first, what is Art from the Streets?
Our mission is to provide a safe and encouraging environment for people who are experiencing homelessness in Austin to use their bright creative spirit to create art. But more importantly, the process of doing this builds community. It helps to heal. It helps provide them self-determination. And that indirectly helps support them through securing housing, because it's not just about providing a house, it's about providing community and purpose. And that's the piece that we play in the whole homelessness puzzle.
I think it's incredible. When I went to go visit Sage Studio in February, the studio is at the Canopy, and y'all are just a few doors down.
We are.
And I loved the artwork I
Our
was
neighbors.
seeing. Yeah.
Yes. So we do some collaborations with them. What's so incredible at being at the Canopy, it's an artist community. There are studios and galleries and nonprofits like Sage and Art from the Streets who are all collectively creating there. And once a month, first Saturday of the month, they call it First Saturday, they have open canopy. And so those who choose to participate that weekend will just open their doors and welcome the public. They sell art, they showcase their work, and that place is central to what we do. We operated for 30 years without a home. And in 2021, we were able to gather the support of some incredible donors who helped us move into our studio at Canopy. And for the first time in 30 years, our program was no longer homeless. So those who are participating with us, the artists, they had a home, and we have storage for supplies and art pieces so that our artists don't have to carry them around with them. But also the collective community is really so encouraging because it legitimizes the experience. I'm not just creating little artworks that people are taking pity on me and purchasing. No, I am part of this artistic community. I am validated in the collaborative work, in the compliments I receive from the other artists here and from those who visit our showcases. It's an incredible environment, and we're so happy to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're going to check out art, I highly recommend going there. Bring the entire family. My son, who is 12, we were going around to each piece of artwork at Art from the Streets, and it was like a heart's love theme, I believe,
Yes, that
maybe
was in
for
February.
Valentine's
It was,
Day.
uh-huh.
And we actually met
Julian.
Yeah, Julian Clay. And what's so funny is we were talking about his artwork, and my son was talking about the different colors and what he liked about that art. And then the artist came behind and was like, hey, this is my art. And we started talking to Julian, and he was fantastic. And so it was just a really neat experience to chat with one of the artists, go and look at the art, and have those conversations with your children afterwards that this is something that we're supporting in the arts community in general.
Absolutely.
Right? So anyway, it's fantastic. Highly recommend going. Talking about location, so that's where the studio is. What is the reach of your artists?
So if you think about the logistics of being homeless, our reach is how far can you travel? It's Austin, and urban sprawl continues to spread outward. So our artists don't just stop creating with us when they get a house. They continue to create with us because, again, like I said, housing alone does not solve homelessness. They are part of that community, and they're supporting others who are struggling, and having that diversity in different types of people and personalities and experiences, but also where they are in their journey has been really very helpful. But when we're talking about our reach, it's hard. It's hard being able to take a bus to the studio. Sometimes our artists will travel as much as an hour or longer on the bus to reach us. And so we are trying to develop our outreach efforts. We have some amazing community partners in Austin, Sunrise Navigation Center, Foundation Communities, Integral Care, and we're working to try to figure out ways that we can be out in the community where our artists are. People experiencing homelessness who can't get to us as easily at our studio in East Austin. And so that is one of our current challenges that we're working with. We don't serve outside of Austin at this time. We operated for 30 years in downtown, and now we are in East Austin.
I love that, and I love the location. Definitely go that first Saturday. It's a lot of fun. And then I just want to hear a little bit about you and how you got involved with Art from the Streets.
So I have been working, serving my friends from the streets for the past 10 years. I was a volunteer and then on staff at Mobile Loaves and Fishes Villages, Community First Village. They started as a truck ministry. And then, of course, that is usually managed by individual churches. And so their main initiative now is the huge permanent supportive housing location in Far East Austin. Many of the friends that I first made there, we're talking 10 years ago, moving in as neighbors, they call them, residents. And some of them were artists. And they said, I've been practicing art at Art from the Streets. We have this annual show in the fall. You should come. And so that was the first time I went to an art show, was when new residents of Community First Village participating at Art from the Streets were showcasing their work. That was my first experience with Art from the Streets. Over time, I spent a year working with young adults who have aged out of foster care, who are in extended foster care. And 50% of those kids end up homeless. We see some of them as they get older and the impact of the system on how they're able to support themselves. But it's been such a joy to land at Art from the Streets, which I started about 3 years ago. For us, we build relationships, but we celebrate art and things that are beautiful. And there's a lot of challenge and there's a lot of tears, but the art piece is so incredible because it's something that is so uplifting. And that has been something that I have felt just such an incredible commitment to. There was a book that I read last year, actually. I brought it with me, so I made sure I got the title right. It's called Your Brain on Art, How the Arts Transform Us, with Susan Magsamen and Ivy Ross. It's incredible because it talks about how healing art can be. And it even maps how the hand to the pencil to the paper, through the nervous system, through the brain, and the connection of self, which then relays to the connection to others, and then building community. It's this whole process. And art can be so many different forms. I consider myself an artist, but I haven't actually painted a painting since college. But I love to play the piano. I love to work in my garden. And all of these things that I'm experiencing when I'm doing it, the centering of myself and working through problems and also sharing that activity with others, is so healing. It is so important to build community. And so to be able to do that with men and women who are just such incredible people, incredible stories, and to have an outlet for them to elevate their voices, it's been an absolute joy. So that has been my journey, my career path into Art from the Streets.
We wouldn't have the same world we have today. There'd be less joy if we didn't have art and music. And Austin, I think, really takes art and culture very seriously compared to maybe not other cities like New York. But I noticed with Amplify Austin, arts and culture did very well. I want to switch gears to the numbers and the impact. But before I do that, recently I looked at the homeless assessment report, and the 2023 one said that there was a 12% year over year increase in homelessness. And I talked about this with a topic that matters with my neighbor and friend, Courtney, and I've already recorded that. But then I since looked and I said, oh, they had something in December 2024. And they said that there was an 18% increase year over year from 2023. So lack of affordable housing is a real issue that we're experiencing in the US. Even more surprising was family homelessness rose by 39%. So I know that you're not in the business of giving housing, but you are in the business of saying you still matter despite your housing situation. And I think that's so important. Let's talk maybe a little bit more about the numbers. Can you speak to some of those numbers and the impact that Art from the Streets is having on the homelessness in Austin?
Homelessness is a complicated topic. Even how you define homelessness is challenging. So there are periods of homelessness. People don't know that if you're living out of a hotel, you could be considered homeless. If you are sleeping on a neighbor's couch, you could be considered homeless. The HUD, Housing Urban Development, they provide a lot of the federal funding. So in municipalities like Austin, they perform what's called a point in time count. And they do it every January. This is mandated by HUD. And the reason they do that is because if in one of the coldest months of the year, at an evening time, like 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, they actually do a physical count of who is out on the streets to give a better idea of the numbers related to more chronic homelessness. And chronic homelessness, those are individuals who have experienced it for a year or more. Okay, so there's so many numbers. And if you're reading statistics, like what are you comparing apples to oranges?
The complexities of it. It's not, there's not one number that's going to capture what's going on in homelessness year over year. And when you say chronic homelessness, Could that be in your car, or is that usually on the street?
Yes, absolutely
Yeah.
could be in your car. But as I mentioned before, homelessness and housing is so much more complex than just you put somebody in a house and problem solved. We're done. It's not just that we need housing, we need wraparound services. And so that term can include healthcare, mental health care, case support. We're on the edge of that as well. Some of those wraparound services where we're providing community and an outlet for people to be able to work on their mental health. We have people who participate, artists who may live in a single occupancy apartment and they never leave. So then they find us, and pretty soon they're feeling encouragement and they're making new friends, and pretty soon they're reaching out to family members. There's just so much that can happen when you start building that community. That's what we provide. So to just build a bunch of houses is not going to work. And for those who really struggle with mental health issues, it needs so much more care and support. It's not just about bootstrapping. They just need a little hand up and they'll be on their way.
I would even argue, and I'm going to come from an unexperienced and more of an anecdotal point of view, which probably isn't too smart when you're talking about topics like this, but some people might be opposed to being put into a homeless type, like community first. I'll just speak to my experience. So my mom is in and out of living in her car for the past like 5 years. She ended up staying with me recently for a month because someone wanted her to stop sleeping on the floor of her apartment. So I think she would be classified, even though she wouldn't classify herself as homeless. She very much has been living a life where she has no mailbox and she refuses to take any housing assistance. I think she is a perfect example where maybe art from the streets wouldn't be for her, housing wouldn't be for her, but she absolutely needs other services to help her.
That is actually a very intelligent observation, in that homelessness has so much stigma around it. I think because people use it as a term to describe someone they see on the street and they consider might be dirty or less than. But homelessness is really just a state that is temporary. Sometimes it can last a really long time. I've had friends who have been homeless for 35 years before they found a house. But we have friends who have been homeless and they have higher education, they have college degrees, they're very intelligent, they may have come from affluent communities. There's just not one thing that determines what makes a person homeless. But if you think about all of the things that may be uncertain in your life, and without having so many other supports around you, if you lost, for example, your physical health or your mental health for a period of time, and it also requires you to accept support when it's offered, which can also be difficult for some people experiencing particularly mental health issues. It's so easy to fall on the streets, to lose your way. I saw a Wall Street Journal article recently about a man who was a doctor or I don't know, something very well respected in his community, and he suffered from mental illness and walked away from his family. And
I think I heard
did you
this
hear
story
about
as
that?
well. Yeah.
Spent 2 years on the streets. It can happen to anybody.
I think it was very moving because you do typically just say homeless, they're on the street. You're just walking past these people and that's their state. But look at people, like you said, that man, but also like my mom, who has been at the LA homeless shelter when she was in California, has lived in a car where she just literally puts the seat down and lays back in it and sleeps overnight, and had an RV and would go into the Walmart parking lot and knew where she could go without being told she needs to leave. And then going into a 24-hour fitness to try and go get a shower. You see all the challenges
And
they're going through.
everywhere you go, if you're in that state, you feel unwelcome. You cannot shower here. Please, you cannot sit here. You cannot lay here. And it's a whole other complicated issue when we're talking about camping or sitting around. And we certainly need to be able to navigate through challenges when people who are struggling may not interact well with the public. And that is a very real, very challenging situation. However, if you are experiencing homelessness, whether it's someone like your mother or someone who is in really bad shape, sleeping in an alleyway, you're just not welcome. You don't feel welcome. And that's why it's so important as a community. We need to make people feel like you are a part of this community and you do matter. And communicating that can be as easy as just smiling at a person who may be panhandling on the street. And whether or not you give money is a personal choice. There's no right or wrong answer. I don't carry cash and I say so, but have a great day. And maybe I really love that baseball team. Folks who've been on the streets, they'll tell you people turn away, they won't make eye contact. You're just so unwelcome everywhere you sit, stand, or just be.
We're not really taught what is the
We're
etiquette
not.
around
And we're so
you know.
afraid because then we have issues of don't use the word homeless. And I will tell you, homeless is not a bad word. It's
Yeah.
just not. Whether you say unhoused or experiencing homelessness, I've never had a friend who had been homeless who didn't use the word homeless. And some folks will look at you like, what is this word, unhoused? And it's not about changing the word or making people feel uncomfortable about saying the right thing. It's about very simple interactions. And that's where we start to break down the stigma, not put so many rules around it.
So I read this book about how the hyper individualistic culture of the US is weakening us. The author was in his mid 30s when he found out he had Asperger's. It's already difficult as it is with a neurotypical person. Now it just gets worse. If you're not neurotypical, you have any mental health issues, it becomes a very isolating culture. And I think instead of saying, oh, that person is homeless, maybe we should start asking things like, do we have affordable housing? We should start asking things like, do we have the access to mental health services? So sometimes maybe not just saying that person, because you're talking about the stigma. Maybe sometimes we should also think about a holistic picture of why is this person in a specific situation.
Sure, but I would also challenge you to make it even more simple. Just having a conversation, not worrying about what the solutions are, because I don't know about you, but I can't actually solve anything personally. But what I can do is do something to interact with the person who's right here next to me. And I will tell you, in this hyper individualistic society, I have friends who they have every bit of material wealth and they are more lonely than some of my friends who have absolutely no material wealth, no job, but at least they have community.
And that's where Art from the Streets comes
Yes.
in. Y'all have some great impact. You have over 100 artists.
We do. We have over 100 artists that participate in our studio.
Yeah.
We are hoping to double that in the next year or two, primarily through our outreach efforts, working with community partners. That is some programming that we are continuing to try to develop. A lot of what we do is in response to the artists that we serve, and we may have ideas about how we would like to do things. We try it out, and then we get feedback from everyone who's there participating. We have artist liaisons who represent the voice of the artist community that participates with us. They sit in all of our team meetings, they go to all of our public events, and they're very integral in helping us know what may not be communicated to us, because maybe artists feel like they might hurt our feelings, which is definitely not the case. But that's what is so incredible about our organization, is that it's very responsive. We're very dynamic. We're always trying new things. So we look forward to being able to reach more, like I said, out in the community. We served 106 artists in our studio last year. And
That's
so
fantastic.
yeah, and about half of those are very actively participating in art sales. 95% of the proceeds from the sale of original artwork, that doesn't include merchandise or prints or anything, but original artwork, 95% goes back to our artists.
And that's huge. Significantly more than what a lot of artists receive. Do you know what the industry standard is?
So it's about 50%
Yeah.
if you're showing in a gallery. We distributed around $85,000 in proceeds, dignified income to our artists last year in 2024. It is huge, but even more than the purchasing power of what those dollars do, it's the validation. It's the impact of feeling like you have value that other people perceive and are willing to pay for and interact with you to get. And that's huge.
Art from the Streets has been around for 33 years, but you said only 3 years staff in studio. Maybe just talk about these numbers a little bit more, though. Your greatest expense, I know we talked about this.
Sure. If you have a location that you're paying rent for in Austin, that is your greatest expense, of course, and staff as well.
But you only have three
We have
staff.
3 on staff, 1 part-time. Yes.
Yeah, this is not a robust
We
operation.
are heavily dependent upon our incredibly amazing volunteers, but it's expensive. And And we couldn't operate the way that we do without our studio. We're talking about East Austin. There are not a lot of nonprofit discounts in real estate.
But it's so important that you do get a studio at the Canopy where there's other artists, other studios. To your point, it legitimizes these artists. It's so important, but that is an expense. And knowing that 95% of the proceeds of original artwork goes back to the artists, there, of course, needs to be fundraising. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So right now, it's a very precarious time for nonprofits. There's a lot of very recent conversation around events that are planned for, say, month of April, probably into May, where we're not seeing the same support that we have seen in the past. In fact, these conversations are with fundraising professionals across the city, with auctioneers, and what they're seeing is almost unprecedented. It's a worrisome time. There's just a lot of uncertainty in the economic world. And as you can imagine, nonprofits may not be viewed as an immediate need, but because we're all, and especially organizations like Art from the Streets, we work on a lean budget. We are very fiscally responsible. We don't know how to rise to the occasion of uncertainty if we don't have a community of supporters behind us. And so now is just a really uncertain time for us. Every little donation matters, especially to organizations like Art from the Streets. $25 can provide supplies for an artist. There's so many things that you can do with that money, and it's so very important to be able to show up for nonprofits during this time because it's just looking really scary for everyone I know.
There's a lot of uncertainty around grants, but are you seeing less donations?
Private foundations are reassessing their priorities. So for grant funding, we would receive federal funds through the National Endowment for the Arts. They were really heavily focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion priorities, which we, of course, benefited from for a few years. And now, of course, with current administration, we do not. And in fact, the National Endowment for the Arts scrapped all of its grant opportunities and have created one new one that is focused solely upon celebrating America's 250th birthday and creating programming around that. And that's all of its funding. We're not going to be able to do that. We don't have the capacity. So all of the funding priorities, everybody's trying to figure out, are there some more basic needs that we need to focus on? Arts may be heavy hit because it could be viewed as not a basic need. We're very lucky to be in Austin. The culture is a little bit different here than it might be in other communities. We have a spring fundraiser coming up on April 9th. It is called the Create Change Gala, and that will be at the Cathedral at 6:30. Follow us on social media. We'll have more announcements on online art auctions. We've received some donations from some professional artists who are supporting us. We'll start sending out messages, emails, and social posts around April 1st. The online art auction will launch on April 9th, and it will last through the following weekend. And we ask if that is not something that you can participate in, if you can give $10, $20, go to our website. It all makes such a huge amount of difference to organizations like ours. And we're so incredibly grateful for those who give even just a little bit.
Yeah, that's great. Going back real quick, your artists, do any of them have art backgrounds or do they come and learn?
Some of them have art educations. Others will come in never having picked up a paintbrush. And what's so great is that they teach each other. The volunteers help instruct as well. And sometimes it's very exploratory. What's so fun is that you walk into the studio. If we have art hanging on the wall for a show, for example, you know whose is which. Everyone has their own unique style at whatever level it is. And some of our artists have some pretty incredible talent. They've been painting for a very long time. So they've really refined their skills, and others are just getting started. But each one is so unique, and each one has a story. It's just so fun to hear their stories through that art.
I wonder how many other times they really have the ability to tell their stories or tell a story. Probably not enough.
And that's a message that I'm always trying to share with people. In what difference you can make is listen to someone. People want to be seen. People want to be heard. It doesn't matter your status. It doesn't matter.
Everyone, it's human.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We all feel this way. So that is a way that their voices are heard visually. But yes, they also show up and participate in shows, so they're able to tell their stories. I know you met Julian at
He
our
was
show.
great and we loved his art.
So Julian actually came from another city that just was not economically viable for him to succeed. And so he moved to Austin thinking, okay, there's going to be more job opportunity.
And how long ago was that?
I couldn't tell you the exact year, but probably 2 years ago, roughly. He's been participating with us for about 2 years. But it took a long time to secure a job. I adore that man. He works so very hard, and he's young, and he's got the energy, and he has the physical capacity to be able to work. Many artists do not. But Julian, and here's an example of the barriers in homelessness. He comes, he finds housing, and he starts working a part-time job as he's looking for more secure employment. The housing unit had stipulations on you couldn't have any income to stay there, so he gets kicked out. So he's working a part-time job, staying at a shelter. He is working his tail off, also participating in studio where he's building community. He is honing his artistic talent. He's finding so much healing just within himself, the inner work that he did. He's come such a long way. I'm just so proud to know him as a friend. And today he has a full-time job. He works at night so that he can participate in studio during the day and he can still have his art outlet. And he is another one of those where you see his artwork and you know whose it is. And he actually has entered his artwork into other galleries around town, other shows. But what's so incredible about that community then is now that he has been through that experience, others who are coming into the studio who may be currently on the streets have mentorship through people like Julian, through other artists who like, man, I'm so sorry I've been there.
Julian's art is great. It's no surprise that he's in other art shows. But then also the feeling of purpose, also another human quality of all of us, right? We want a sense of purpose. And when you get to be a teacher or a mentor, there really is something that fills your bucket.
Absolutely. So, just another quick example of another artist who came on board really struggling with addiction, very honest about his addiction. We have a big annual show every year. His biggest concern was that the public would think he was dirty and treat him like they do when he was on the streets. Being at the art show and participating in that really validated him as a human. He was just almost manic. He was so excited, just so alive, just validated that people loved his artwork. He was ready to get moving. He spent the next year really working with his art to help him through recovery, help him through his addiction. And he shared how when he would find himself in dark times, someone from the studio would say, hey, how you doing? We haven't seen you in a while. And he knew the first thing he had to do was pick up a paintbrush and start putting his feelings, start putting his depression onto a canvas and start healing in that way that brought him back into the studio. And then last year, his aim was, I'm going to get a job. So what he received from the proceeds of the annual show last year, he used to help him cross the barriers to getting employment. And since that time, last several months, we haven't seen him much because he's been working. And and he's got more ambitions. He's going to go back to school. He's going to continue to do that, but while still participating in this community, because what he has to offer others and what others have to offer him through art, through this community is just so important for that continual journey that he's on right now.
When you talk about the hand up, hand out, do you ever hear people say that? So it seems like there was a hand up there because it got him to the good place. You've mentioned there's different types of homeless people. Some people, there's the ability to give the hand up and then they go thrive. But there's some people where we actually just need to give a hand out, right? Am I wrong in this? Am I talking incorrectly here?
I had a conversation with one of our volunteers recently who said, I feel so bad because I was talking to one of our artists. This artist has struggled for many years, severe mental health issues, other issues as well. And she said, I told her it's going to be okay. And she barked back at me, it's not going to be okay. Don't tell me that. And honestly, in my experience, there's so many people that will never be okay. But I also know that those same people find so much value in just being part of the community. And so when somebody's struggling, if somebody's just hurt, just sitting down, what's going on? And just hear that story and just say, I am so sorry. That is just awful. And my heart breaks. And I just know that we all love you here. And we're so glad that you're part of this community. And there are so many like this particular artist who will probably never be okay.
I think that woman had good intentions, right?
Absolutely.
But there is such thing, and this is across the board, what people experiencing cancer, people experiencing negative times in their life. There is what I guess I've been hearing more toxic positivity, where you're always constantly positive about their future. And sometimes people just want to be heard, and that's it.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's, you're not hearing me.
Right.
I'm suffering.
Right.
I don't need you to fix it because you can't. I don't need to be fixed. I just want to be seen and heard and loved. And that's all we can do, really.
I love that. I want to hear a good brag from you. So I make guests share a little bit about something that they're proud of that they've done. And this hopefully inspires other people to go do something good.
Okay, listen.
Yeah.
I have been in service for now 10 years as a career. I've done a lot of work, a lot of service projects, some that just took me to my very limits. And I will say that the most impactful thing that I feel I can do, and anyone can do this, is just connect with somebody in a very simple way, okay? So you wanted me to think of something and thought, well, last week there was a woman that I've been around her for 3 years, but she's very closed off. She's very uncomfortable around people in general. But she was walking up one day and I looked at her and I said, girlfriend, you are throwing some serious like 70s Faye Dunaway vibes. This outfit is rocking. And she was just so flattered, right? And it's easy if you don't know a person to make a comment on, I love that color, or a baseball cap, or whatever it is. And it makes people feel seen in that moment. By the end of the day, she was approaching me, asking me questions, engaging. Never engaged with me before. That's all it takes, honestly. And it doesn't matter if it's someone who's experiencing homelessness, down on their luck, just having the hardest time, or someone like you who is sitting here in front of me, very beautiful, smiling. You could have a lot of stuff going on. And I ask, how you doing? Like, what is going on in your world, right? Like, how you doing? And the more that you trust a person, obviously, the more you're going to open up. But just say, I'm just so grateful for being here today. And you allowing me to tell my story has meant so much to me. And I want to thank you for that.
Genuine compliments.
Absolutely.
I'm so happy you did that good brag. And the reason I'm so happy is because every time I tell this, everyone's like, oh no, it has to be something big.
Something impressive.
And I actually think reminding people about a small act of kindness, these are free. It is free.
Absolutely.
To go and say something and make someone else's day. That was such a good brag. And look, you even just made me smile just talking.
Good.
You know, you're just so sweet.
How easy was that?
It's so easy.
It's so easy.
Okay, so I want listeners to have chance for bragging rights. We know April 9th, the gala. What time is that at? Is it
6:30 at the Cathedral.
Tickets are on sale. Buy art. Original artwork, of course, supports the artists. And then the digital copies online, that's 50% of the proceeds.
Yeah, it's roughly 50% after we pay for the merchandise and whatnot.
Yeah, but a little bit more goes actually back to the nonprofit, which is fantastic. Attend the shows. Lastly, volunteer, whether you have an art background, but if you don't have an art background, show up.
Some of our most committed, most incredible volunteers are not artists whatsoever. And there are always ways to plug in and be of tremendous value.
And Courtney and I explore this, that the more you volunteer, the more trust you build, because there is sometimes a trust issue with giving. Where do I give my money? How do I know that it's going towards something good? The more you volunteer, the more likely you are to donate, because most nonprofits are good. And once you step into their world and you work either with the artist or work with the studio, you're going to realize that those dollars are really going towards something really good.
Absolutely. And I will say a lot of our board members come from volunteer service.
That's great. Well, show up for Art from the Streets and give your recurring donation. It really doesn't take much. Well, thanks, Marla.
Thank you.
Hey, listeners. Art from the Streets is proving that dignity and community can be just as life-changing as a roof over your head. As Marla said so beautifully, housing alone doesn't solve homelessness. It's about connection, purpose, and being seen, and that's exactly what they're giving their artists. They're not only creating space for artists to paint, they're creating space for people to be seen. And sometimes that starts with something as simple as a compliment. Marla told us a moment when she noticed someone's outfit. A small thing, but that kind of moment, it matters. It reminds us that volunteering and donating aren't the only ways to make a difference. Far from it. A kind word to a colleague, a compliment to the cashier, a warm smile to a stranger on the street. These are things we can all do every single day, and they're free. Because at the end of the day, we all just want to feel seen. It's human. As Mr. Rogers so eloquently said, if you can mention what you appreciate in someone, it's just like offering them a gift. So go ahead, be like Marla, and offer someone a gift today. And if you're looking for more ways to get involved with art from the streets, attend the Create Change Gala on April 9th. Purchase original art because 95% goes directly to the artist. But don't forget the nonprofit has expenses too, such as their studio at the Canopy. So show up by volunteering or donating. Next week, we're escaping into Austin Sunshine Camps, the only camp in the country that I'm aware of that offers 100% free overnight camp. Austin Sunshine Camp's mission is to provide the magic of overnight camp without the barrier of cost. Special thanks to Nightlight Insurance for making this podcast possible, Todd Thompson for editing and mixing, Graham Thompson and Jaden Dyer for the music, Corey McCain at Just Push Record Studios, and Ashlyn O'Neill for digital content management. Join us next week as we escape into a cause.